I got interested in the feminine energy about 15 years ago when someone read a passage from the book, The Gnostic Gospels. And it was just awesome to me. There was this god who was called Ealdabaoth, and he was talking about he was the Lord thy God and put no other gods before me. And Sophia, the goddess, peeked down from the heavens and said, you know, you need to stop lying. You need to stop putting that out there. And I was like, wow. And that set me off on my path. So to this day, I'm a devotee of the Great Mother, the goddess energy, the divine feminine energy. I call the Great Mother Big Mama, affectionately. And a lot of people talk about the times that we're living in, and this is the end of days, the end of time. The Christians say that Jesus will return. I've heard some metaphysicians talk about it's the return of the golden age, and they don't talk about too much chaos coming. For me, it's the return of the divine feminine. And it's not that she ever left. I mean, we're living in the universe, the yoniverse. Yoni is another term for the female genitalia. So, I mean, we're walking around in her. But there were just certain things that had to occur. There was a, let's say, like an eclipse. She's booting up. You know, that's what the sun does, the moon does. One of the things that happens during an eclipse. So her presence is here, but there's a greater return that's coming. We're going to really begin to feel it. And in some quarters, and in most quarters, I would venture to say, it's probably going to be a little chaotic. Well, this is what feminine energy is. It's called, feminine energy is called the chaos energy. I thought it was interesting. One night I was listening to a radio program, and they talked about giving birth is chaos. And I thought, yeah, well, that makes sense, because the feminine energy is chaos. You know, for years when I was growing up, they only named hurricanes and tornadoes, they only gave them feminine names. It's only been about the last 15 years that they have a male name. And this is chaos. That's probably why they give it to them. I mean, you don't get out there and try to reason with a tornado or a hurricane. You get out the way. You know, a guy I knew, his mother worked in the prison system in New York for a lot of years. And he said when those female inmates got to fighting, it was something else. The males could not touch it. It's a different kind of energy that's released. So this, in my opinion, is what is about to happen. And I started interpreting some of the monster movies. They were giving you that message. Monster, to me, is the moon star energy. Moon is a feminine energy. And now they have tried to co-opt that with these man in the moon symbols. And of course, you know, a man did walk on the moon, so the space program, you know, as it goes. But the moon itself is a feminine energy as we know it today. Now, maybe in another time, the sun energy was female, but I'm talking about commonly known today, the moon is a female energy. And if you recall, they were up there trying to bogart on the moon's surface within the last couple of years. The $100,000 question is, were they trying to stop the return of the feminine energy? Well, anyway, the movies, monster movies under a patriarchal system have monsters destroying the empire, because usually the monsters are in New York State, which is the Empire State. And Um, we commonly think of Godzilla and King Kong as male energies. And those are, but I ask to find out about the feminine root of that energy. And then I recalled, right after asking that question, that I recalled that when I had seen the 1998 remake of the movie Godzilla, Godzilla had left eggs behind in Madison Square Garden. And leaving eggs behind is definitely a feminine trait. And then King Kong, I thought, that they portrayed King Kong as falling in love with this white woman, and that was definitely a male energy. But then there was another side to it. Something said, look up the etymology of the word king and the word Kong. And I found it in a book by Suzar called, what was that book called? Oh, The Great Black Mother of Creation. And she says in there, quote, the eternal Great Mother is symbolized by the moon. The word queen is from the same roots as the word Jean, can, K-E-N, kin, K-I-N, and know, K-N-O-W. So, king and queen have the same root. So it could have very easily have been Queen Kong, when we're talking about the etymology of the word, to support my theory that behind what was portrayed as a masculine energy, there was really some feminine energy present. And also, the word Kong is from the same root as conch, conch, as in concubine, cone. So, a queen cunt. King Kong is etymologically the same as queen cunt. And I mean, Godzilla, queen cunt, tornadoes, hurricanes. I mean, they wreak some havoc. And they're called monsters, which, like I said, is moon, star. And these are called horror movies. And horror is a feminine term. It's a sacred, it used to be a sacred term. The priests at Isis temple, Aset's temple, were skilled in the sexual arts. They were sacred whores. But under a patriarchy, of course, the whore is not something that you want to be. So, what I'm saying to you is this. There is something coming. Everybody knows that we're getting ready for something. And one aspect of it is the feminine energy. There's which is a spiritual energy when you look closer. And it's the antithesis of the patriarchal system that we live in. And so, of course, it will disrupt it. And therefore, it's portrayed as something that you don't want to happen. Several movies talk about that. I saw Manitou, which was a woman who was pregnant, and this monster was talking through her. I call it a moon star. And she was prophesying that something's getting ready to happen. I'm about to give birth to something, and you people are not going to like it. Had the hospital, the whole city in an uproar. And they sent for a Native American to do some kind of ritual to circle that bed with some sacred something. And that monster spoke through the woman and said to the Native American, do not help them. Which really, a Native American, well, what are you thinking? After all that's been done to you, why are you trying to keep this status quo intact? So I'm going to do a part 2, because I want to keep this under 10 minutes, talking about the divine feminine energy, Big Mama's return, and also to say that the first goddess that we run into after we incarnate is our mothers. And so I've started to write. And the first book that I did, because I'm working on a couple actually. But the first one I did was called Tales from a Wise Womb. And this is a tribute to the first goddess in my life, my mother. You know, on the human plane. It's just some words of wisdom that she gave me that were really helpful. You know, everything from money and man, you know, the sexual energy. A lot of women that I was hanging out with when I was in my 20s, I was surprised at how many of them didn't have anybody giving them, you know, any kind of insight like that. But she's she was the first goddess in my life, and she stands in for all of us, for the cosmic mother. And I'm sorry for anybody who came here and who didn't have the experience of having a really good mother. But it's just probably something that we all chose to do differently. We're here having all kinds of different experiences. Anyway, the name of the book again is Tales from the Wise Womb, W-O-M-B. And it's on Lulu. It may even be on Amazon. But if you're interested, check it out. But anyway, I'll come back and talk about part 2 of Divine Feminine Energy, its implications, its power, the mystical aspect of it, and all of that. Until next time, take care.